Where's the sunfall? I don't know, man. Where's the sunfall? You tell me. I'm fucking terrified of this deck, but I'm so scared of this deck, man. I'm more scared of this deck than I ever was of any Crucius deck. Ah! I'm not ready for this chat. Their hand's absolutely insane. Bruv, 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 bruv. You gotta stop, man. You gotta stop. You're driving me crazy. They're looking. They can't find it either. Okay. No! Oh my god, dude. Three, two, one. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god. Oh my god. Dude, that deck is absolutely insane. I don't know how they're ranked 300. How do they lose a game? How do they ever lose? Breathe now, breathe. That was the ultimate stress.
Hey, what's up? And welcome to this video. Here I'm basically presenting the Alchemy version of my 4-color Legends combo deck from standard basically. It's nothing crazy, by the way. I still think the maybe potentially best creature deck for the format might be the one that I posted last video, so you can also check that out if you want. And yeah, by the way, also thanks for everyone checking out the video from the standard Legends combo deck compared to my channel size that reached quite some people, so that's nice. Now here we are also using some black cards and are even more mid-rangey. So in this case it's actually more of a 5-color mid-range combo deck. But yeah, let's just get into it real quick, I guess. We have in general 3 categories: card advantage or selection, protection, and I think the best mana acceleration in the format in the halflings and the relics. And in the alchemy version, instead of standards PR 1-off, 1 Halo Fountain as the main win condition. Sounds a little bit funny, but it actually works, which I think is the only card in the format that wins as a just 1-off in the deck that also gets around the ring protection, which is important of course in the alchemy metagame right now. And by the way, in this deck you can actually even use the abilities of the Halo Fountain rather nicely. You can find it with Kayla's Reconstruction and even return it from the graveyard with Sam, since it is historic. And of course there are other ways to win the game if you're feeling like janky, I don't know. You can go for a Pier, but that's more for standard, then it's actually pretty good I think. You can go for Drain, which is also something that is kind of competitive, but I still would stick to just as the 1-off card here. You can go for Mill, which is pretty funny, but you can't really target the opponent when there's a ring protection emblem in play. And it also has some other problems I think, but it's a fun one. Or you can even take an extra turn and stop preventing the damage to attack the following turn with the team. But the downside there of course is that those are all 2-offs and mostly not so good on their own in the deck outside of the combo turn. And yeah, that's basically the reason why I think this deck might be actually just so real, because there's no like useless by itself card essentially, as you usually might find within combo-y decks. And yeah, the I cast my library combo by the way is Rona, Eruth and Relic, plus either Unctus or Prosper. Ideally all 5 of them though. But yeah, if you didn't know it already, Unctus passive says whenever a blue creature you control gets tapped, you get to loot basically, draw and discard. And then the same thing basically happens that I just mentioned with Eruth, so you get to exile the top 2 cards of your library instead and you don't have to discard. And that of course works beautifully with Relic of Legends and any card, because you can also make it blue with Unctus ability for even 0 mana by just paying 2 life. But of course perfectly with Rona, because you can just use Rona, tap it for mana with the Relic of Legends, play your extra card, can use then the new card for mana and the Rona for mana. So basically your 2 drops cost 0 mana, your 3 drops cost 1 mana and scrolls net even 1 mana, which usually allows you to play your entire deck basically. But very important to note here as well that this is all scalable. Those cards are very good by themselves, which is the idea of the deck, and also start right away having just even great 2-card synergies. Rona plus Eruth, for example, is a super unfair card advantage combo already, same as Unctus plus Eruth or Rona plus Relic, and then of course it's already scalable to an even better 3-card combination variant, within for example Rona Eruth Relic or Unctus Eruth Relic, even without the 2 other pieces. You're then just like, I don't know, drawing 1/5 or 1/4 of your deck instead of all of it. So bad, right? Anyways, that was the idea of it, for basically each card individually being strong in the deck, which I think I finally achieved. I worked a long time on trimming as much as mediocre cards as possible. And then, by the way, you also have some other position or game-winning, like smaller combos in the deck that might be overlooked otherwise. In, for example, Scrolf and Pippin for spot removal, in Unctus plus Scrolf against Bowmasters, just Eruth against Bowmasters and Shelly in general, Halfling into Relic and a full grip, or just Halfling into Ren, for example, or just Ren on 3, especially on the play, can be game-winning by itself, because often the OP does not have Planeswalker removal and the ultimate comes pretty fast, and is actually really good in this deck. And Ren, by the way, after the ultimate can also recast itself then and start billing for value right away. But we also have Looters, the Tyvar removal from the opponent, so it's really good and often game winning, the ultimate. Which is just one reason for Ren, basically, by just being a good alternative for the now missing Crucius, since it now unfortunately only has 1 toughness and dies to the Bomies. But it also fixes mana for Kalos Reconstruction, which is really important, same as the Relic and like treasure tokens. And it can also, by the way, be looped from the graveyard with Samwise or its own previous ult sometimes within the combo turn if you need some extra tapped creatures for the instant Halo Fountain win, which sometimes can be the case if creatures got exiled. And you have that kind of mana because of Prosper if you have the full combo. And that's, by the way, also one of the main reasons why we have 3 Skrelfs in here, even though they're not ideal right now because of the Bomies without an Unctus in play. But since the combo turn happens so frequently, and being able to net mana with them by just casting them is so powerful, combined with the fact that you can loot them for extra mana generation from the graveyard with Sam or even Ren ult, to then be able to cast your Prosper often, which then again allows you to have all the mana in the world. So often you're really just looking for Prosper or Skrelfs to then be able to cast the Prosper, if you're not already able to do that. And that's also the reason why Prosper is a 2-of. I would like to play him as a 1-of, especially if you would still run Crucius in there. But all you're doing is like just looking for the Unctus, just looking for the Prosper when approaching the combo turn, or especially if you are already in there, of course. So having a 2 of Unctus, 2 of Prosper, I think therefore is kind of necessary. Otherwise I would like to trim those 2 as to a 1-of, by the way. But yeah, I think 2 is the very least that you have to run. And yeah, that's the reason why you want at least 2 Scrolls. Just 2 by itself is enough, but at latest at game 2 or 3, opponents often start to include Graveyard Hate, which then can, even if not intentionally, result in a Scroll becoming exiled, and then with the original 2-of you would then only have 1, and then couldn't perform the mana looping in the combo turn, which can be absolutely crucial. And yeah, that's also one main reason why Tyvar is in here. Because for this one convenient 1-off win con to work, you need those 15 creatures that are tapped in play, and he lets you then tap all the halflings that you just casted this turn, which otherwise would have summoning sickness, and the added mana from those also helps as well. But of course, outside of this turn, it's also just a great card in this deck, giving the Dorks, Skrelfs, Rona, Pippin, and Rezok, if you main deck it, to give all of those haste essentially when it comes to their tapping abilities. And then being able to fetch back any card that was already in the graveyard or that you mill with the mill tree is super valuable when you are running such strong 2-mana cards. Since the power level of the 2-drops is so high, the minus is also pretty good from the Tyvar. And being able to untap things, of course, makes a lot of sense if you have cards like Relic of Legends or just all of those, tap them for their respective ability cards is valuable. And it also counts as a rare 2-mana play in the combo turn, because you can untap something or return something from the graveyard, which can be, of course, pretty crucial when you're fighting for essentially each and single spent mana in the combo turn, to really be sure to just get to that Prosper and then be able to cast everything in the deck. Alrighty, and the best card itself after turn 1 and 2 is Kalos Reconstruction, I think, which is often what you're really digging for in the either late early game or mid game, since it just allows you to go off with card advantage or even some of the variants of the combo out of like nowhere, and can then therefore be a pretty scary card to play against. You, by the way, do want to make sure, though, especially if you might have a pretty good idea of the deck list the opposing side might be running, to play both around Make Disappear and only hitting, let's say, 3 or 2 cards with it when you went for X equals 4 or even 5, I don't know. Because often it's just going to be looking for 1 or 2 combo pieces anyways with it. Sure, there's in general valuable cards to hit with, and sometimes the X equals 3, 4, or 5 makes a lot of sense for that reason, but mostly I think it's really just looking for actually just an Eruth or Unctus or Rona or something like that. So usually I think there's actually no reason to go for X equals 3 or more like 4 when really every single mana matters if you hit the combo. or even if you don't. So yeah, just as one of many things to keep in mind when playing a deck like this. And yeah, the most underrated card in the deck I think might be the Chip, maybe, because it's drawing cards endlessly and relentlessly without actually having to draw, hashtag Bomies and Shelly. By the way, gives you even basically your best card left to be used on the board if it was equipped after they, let's say, used the board wipe, to then be able to recover from it. And one last thing I think before we go into the tricky part of this match in front of us here. If your Halo Fountain got exiled or stolen, grrr, Demir, look at you. You can then still win, no worries, because you can just chill a turn. You have your deck in play, essentially, at least when it comes to the creatures. You can loop Hajars, you can activate Unctus for every creature in the deck. You can even loop Rents from the graveyard to animate all your lands into creatures. You will probably have lethal the following turn by just attacking most of the time. Yeah, this is not what you're aiming for still, of course, because the One Ring and the Excel or Toughness Reduction based board drive removal spells can still get you them. So this is never what you're aiming for when it comes to closing out the game, but still can be an option and definitely often is also just good enough. Okay, so here we are up against a Demir opponent. I think this person is one of the first ones actually, or even the first one which came up with the archetype, which is pretty popular right now in the metagame. I definitely do want to cast this relic from the XL here first, and the opponent does go for the counter, which actually is no problem in this case, because we have this really strong 2-drop in Samwise Gamgee, which lets us return historic cards from the graveyard, and besides sagas or legendary creatures, artifacts like the relics also are historic. So that's one reason why Sam is just such a strong card in the deck and one of the rare multiple 2-offs in the deck. So here we can play our Unctus. You can win technically on turn 3, but usually the earliest is turn 4, but this is what is realistic. You're just playing this kind of like mid-range game plan and keep grinding against these opponent's cards, and then just cast this Kayla's Reconstruction, just draw those cards, return those cards from the graveyard with a card like Sam, and then you just get to that 2-card combo, then you get to the 3-card combo variant, or even in this case the 4-card combo variant eventually, and just start going off. And this, by the way, here is also a reason why you include those scrolls, because now we can start netting mana, and now, as also mentioned earlier, all we are doing is looking for a Prosper essentially. I am trying to make sensible mana floating decisions. White and green I think is the most prevalent one in the deck. Making other creatures that Unctus that are not already blue is also one of the first steps that you usually want to make, to then tap it for relic mana, and now it loots because of Unctus passive, since a blue creature just got tapped, and because of Eruth you then instead exile the top 2 of the library. Rona is always fine, but you have to go full control here. It is essentially 0 mana, but yeah, you just gotta tap the original before the other one comes into play. And in the meanwhile, Sam is also creating a bunch of food tokens. That's also a reason why always to play Sam first, or just play it right away when you draw it within the combo turn. Like here, for example, we would just snap play it over pretty much anything else here, other than Prospero, of course. Because we can really need every single food in the later game. If you have to, for example, loot some scrolls for extra mana to then be able to cast the Prosper, because after the Prosper we don't need extra mana, and here he actually is. We can even play it before having played our land here to make an additional treasure, which is relevant when you have no 2 mana cards in hand, because the Prosper adds 1 additional mana by being an additional untapped creature in play with Relic of Legends, and the Rona then of course also gets tapped, but then you only have 2 mana in play. I'm still looping 1 scroll here for mana to just be sure, but I think I didn't have to do that. So you would have to return a creature from the graveyard and therefore use 2 essentially, because it also would create a food on EDB 2 additional food, and that is kind of a waste if you could have just held the land, for example. But yeah, now we basically can't miss on mana, and now I'm just playing essentially all the creatures that are remaining in the deck. We already have exiled the Halo Fountain, but we're just letting it chill in here. I also played Crucius in this kind of version because he was still a 3-3 when I was recording this footage here. but it does not matter too much. One reason, by the way, to also wait with the Halo Fountain, in particular when the opponent has open mana, maybe let's say in particular green mana, even if it's just one, when they have a legend in play, is a card like Bosejo, or if they have 2 mana, like for example Tear Asunder. Because you can just cast the Halo Fountain and activate it right away if all of your creatures are tapped right away. So this is what you want to do. You want to tap all of your creatures right away, your 15 ones, and then play it as really your last card and activate it right away if they have mana open, in particular if they are playing green. Because they can respond to the trigger on the stack, but the trigger is still on the stack. You will win the game anyways. But yeah, here we are just going through the process of playing all those cards. Here I might as well just drop the fountain a little earlier to just make sure to have it down, because sometimes you can time out and then you want to have it down, but in this case we are probably not, even though some time of the clock has definitely gone by, because in the earlier part of this turn I definitely had to think a little bit how to get to this point, and it was not obvious. I had to float like certain colors of mana and stuff. But yeah, now we can play halflings, which create all 1 treasure by costing only 1 mana, but they also can add 1 mana right away with the Taiva in play here. As I also mentioned earlier, this is the main reason why we have Taiva, besides from just being a pretty decent card in the deck in general. So the halflings basically also now net also 1 mana. By looking at our 7 treasures here, I can even play the second Prosper for additional draw, because I don't really have... I have an Eruth over there. I could have just casted that, but it does not matter. Get the last halfling here. Maybe I also didn't need it, but I'm just going through the motions when I'm doing this and not bothering counting the creatures when I know I have all the creatures in play anyways. So this should be 15 or 16, something like that. And if there's something missing, it's probably most likely always in the graveyard, and then you can return it with Tyvar or Sam. And yeah, now just clicking on all the creatures. And yeah, even if the opponent would have had the 1 ring in play, we would still have had this win. And yeah, there's like many other examples where this win condition has proved its adequacy, but I really just wanted to focus on giving an update on this deck, on the Alchemy version essentially, because I already have made a video on it in the standard format on the channel. So if you want, I highly recommend checking this out. I think I quite liked the video. But yeah, that was the update. Thanks for watching, I guess, and if you would try the list, I wish you no meat hooks and sunfalls. See you next time, guys. Ciao.